All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going deep on a tech icon, Steve Jobs. You know, you sent over a ton of stuff, biographies, articles. It's a lot. So what's the mission for this deep dive? I mean, we all know the name Steve Jobs. We know Apple. But what are we really trying to uncover here?
Yeah, exactly. I think we want to go beyond just the swiftest, right? Beyond just listing his achievement.
Yeah, like how did this college dropout, and we'll get to that, how did he go on to lead a company that, well, it redefined entire industries?
It's a wild story. And there are twists and turns.
Oh, yeah, more than a few.
Setbacks, failures, and then a comeback that nobody saw coming.
I think there are some serious lessons in there for all of us, no matter what our own path looks like. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. It reminds us that even the most, iconic figures, right? They're human. And they don't always have it easy.
Right. Their journeys are rarely just a straight line to success.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. Jobs' story starts with his adoption and his upbringing, and this is key, in the heart of Silicon Valley. You know, it's not exactly your average childhood environment. You got to think that had some influence, right?
Hard to imagine it didn't,
No.
to grow up surrounded by that burgeoning tech scene, like breathing in innovation. It had to have had a profound impact. Think about it. It's like being raised in a library. You just develop this unquenchable thirst for knowledge.
And Jobs found the perfect partner in knowledge, wouldn't you say? Early on, his collaboration with Steve Wozniak, it's crucial to this whole story.
Absolutely crucial. It's textbook complementary skills.
Right.
Wozniak, he was the engineering wizard, so he could take Jobs' visionary ideas and actually make them real.
Make them real. And they create the Apple I, literally built in a garage.
It's a garage. Can you imagine?
It's like the ultimate underdog story, right?
Yeah.
It proves that huge innovations can come from the most unexpected places.
It's incredible.
Okay, so Apple starts taking off. In 1984, they introduced the Macintosh.
A Macintosh, yeah.
And it's totally different from every other computer out there at the time. So help me understand this. Why was the Macintosh such a big deal?
It was a game changer, truly. You see, it wasn't just about the technology, okay? It was about how it changed the entire relationship between people and computers.
Okay.
Before the Macintosh, computers they were seen as these complex, intimidating machines.
Totally for, the tech expert.
Exactly. But Jobs, he got it. He understood design, he understood user experience, and he transformed that whole perception.
Totally.
The Macintosh, with its graphical interface, so intuitive, and the mouse. Nobody had seen that before. It made computing accessible to everyone.
To everyday people.
It was like he wanted to democratize technology, empower individuals to use computers in ways that, they never even imagined before.
It was about more than just the tech itself. It was about access, about empowering people. And you can see how that vision really became like a hallmark of Apple products, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, plot twist. In 1985, Jobs is ousted from Apple, from the company he built. How does that even happen?
Well, there were disagreements with the board, clashes over, management styles. And, some people say Jobs could be a little demanding. Let's just say it was a difficult period for everyone involved.
It had to have been a huge blow, being forced out of your own company.
Absolutely.
So what did he do?
He didn't just sit around, that's for sure. He started a new company, NextT, focused on high-end workstations.
Okay.
But it wasn't a massive commercial success.
I'm intrigued. So if NextT wasn't a hit, what was so significant about it?
It's fascinating, actually. NextT forced Jobs to double down on design and user experience. That sleek, minimalist aesthetic, that came to define Apple products, those seeds were sown at NextT.
Oh, I see.
He learned some tough lessons about creating products that weren't just functional. They had to be beautiful. They had to be intuitive.
It was like a design boot camp.
Exactly.
Getting him ready for his eventual return to Apple. But wait, there's another piece to this puzzle, right? Didn't he get involved in animation during this time?
You're right. He invested in this small animation studio called Pixar.
Pixar. Oh, wow.
And they went on to create Toy Story.
Toy Story. Changed animation forever.
Revolutionized it. And storytelling, too.
So we're talking about the guy behind the iPhone who also played a huge role in the future of animation. That's wild.
It really shows you how Jobs could spot talent, creative talent, nurture it. Under his guidance, Pixar just flourished, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with animation, computer-generated imagery, but also those heartwarming stories. They were masters at that.
So there's a pattern emerging. Focus on design at NextT, passion for storytelling, and creative vision at Pixar. Then 1997 rolls around. Apple's struggling. What happens next?
Well, in a move that I think surprised a lot of people, Apple decided to bring Steve Jobs back. And that marked the beginning of one of the most remarkable comeback stories, I think, in all of tech history.
That is a pivotal moment right there. It's like his time away from Apple with all its ups and downs, it was all setting the stage for something huge. Makes you wonder, what would have happened to Apple without that wilderness period for Jobs?
It's an interesting question. But one thing is for sure, Jobs' return to Apple in 1997, it was a turning point. Not just for the company, but for the entire tech industry.
Okay, so Jobs is back at Apple, and you could say the rest is history. But what exactly made this history so significant?
It wasn't just one thing. It was a whole bunch of groundbreaking innovations, things that redefined entire industries. The iPod, the iPhone, the iPad.
Oh, yeah, I remember those launches. It was like a frenzy every time.
There were cultural moments, not just product launches.
But what made these products such game changers? I mean, take the iPhone, for example. It wasn't the first smartphone, right?
Right.
But it became like the archetype, the one everyone followed. Why?
Yeah. It goes back to that vision that Jobs, he really honed it during his time away from Apple. The iPhone, just like the products from Nexty, they had that sleek, minimalist design.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a phone. It was like a fashion statement. And then there was the interface. Remember those older phones?
Oh, yeah.
Clunky buttons, confusing menus. The iPhone just got rid of all that.
Yeah.
Introduced the touch screen, so intuitive. It felt, almost magical.
Yeah, it was revolutionary.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about the hardware.
No.
It was how it worked with the software, like seamlessly. Creating this experience that was elegant and user-friendly all at the same time.
Yeah.
And didn't the App Store play a huge role too?
Huge. It was 2008 when they launched the App Store. Genius move, because it transformed the iPhone from, just a device into a platform. Like this gateway to a universe of possibilities, right?
Yeah, I see what you.
Suddenly your phone was a game console, a GPS, social media hub, fitness tracker, anything you could imagine, basically.
It's like Jobs took that whole idea of fostering creativity, which he did so well with Pixar, and brought it to the tech world.
Exactly.
Instead of trying to guess what every user might want, he created this space where developers could, flourish.
Yeah.
And users got this constantly evolving library of apps and experiences.
Brilliant strategy. Fueled the iPhone's rise and solidified it as, well, the top dog in the smartphone market.
And we can't forget about the iPod either. Revolutionized how we listen to music.
Oh, absolutely.
And the iPad basically created the tablet market as we know it.
It's incredible the impact these devices had. It makes you wonder, how did Jobs know what people wanted even before they knew it themselves?
Oh, I know.
That's the mark of a true visionary, right? He was tapped into the zeitgeist, understood that people crave connection, creativity, convenience. He saw that technology could enrich our lives in ways, we hadn't even thought of yet. The iPod gave us freedom, like our entire music library in our pocket. And the iPad, it offered this new way to interact with the digital world. More intimate,
Yeah.
more portable than a laptop.
All this innovation, it led to massive success, right?
Oh, yeah.
Under Jobs, Apple stock went through the roof, became the most valuable tech company in the world. It was a golden age.
It really was.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm.
Jobs also faced some serious challenges. His health, especially.
Yeah. In 2003, he got a diagnosis that would really overshadow his later years. Pancreatic cancer.
I remember hearing about that.
It was tough. But even with his illness, he stayed at the helm of Apple, kept pushing for innovation, demanding excellence from himself and everyone around him.
Jobs was intense, like legendary for his pursuit of perfection.
Yeah.
But was that drive, that demanding style, was it ultimately a good thing or a bad thing?
That's the million-dollar question. There are no easy answers there. I mean, there's no doubt that Jobs' vision, his attention to detail, it was all key to Apple's success.
Yeah.
He pushed his teams hard, really hard, sometimes maybe too hard. But the results, they're undeniable.
I've heard stories.
There's another side to that leadership style, though, a darker side, Stories about Jobs being harsh, publicly criticizing employees who didn't meet his standards.
It's that classic thing like, do the ends justify the means? You achieve these groundbreaking advancements, but at what cost to the people around you?
You hit the nail on the head. It raises questions about ethics, about leadership, finding that balance, right, between pushing for greatness and treating people with respect and empathy. It's a tough one.
So this tension between Jobs' genius and his demanding side, it's a huge part of his legacy, right?
Yeah.
On one hand, the visionary who changed so many industries. On the other, this complex figure known for being ruthless.
Yeah.
It's hard to reconcile those two things.
I think that's what makes Jobs' story so fascinating, so human. He wasn't a superhero. He was a man with this powerful vision, driven by brilliance, but also by his flaws. And it's up to us, to decide how we interpret his legacy, what lessons we learn from his wins and his losses.
We've covered a lot. Early influences, his time away from Apple, the innovations, his leadership style. It's clear that Jobs' impact goes way beyond the products.
Yeah.
But how do we grapple with his legacy, with all those contradictions and complexities? So a lot to think about, for sure. Jobs' story is definitely multifaceted, full of contradictions, complexity.
It is, but that's what makes it so interesting,
So where do we go from here? Like, after this deep dive into the life and legacy of Steve Jobs, what are the key takeaways?
Well, it's important to remember, even though Jobs passed away in 2011, his influence, it's still shaping the tech landscape today.
It really is.
Apple, under Tim Cook, they've continued to innovate, to grow, right? But that foundation, the emphasis on design, user experience, simplicity, that's pure Steve Jobs.
You could still see his fingerprints on the products, even the ones released after he was gone. But his reach, it goes way beyond Apple, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, think about it. Smartphones, tablets, the whole app ecosystem. It's hard to imagine any of this without Jobs' influence.
He didn't just create products, he created paradigms. Like, he changed how we think about technology, how we use it.
He showed us that technology could be beautiful, intuitive, even magical sometimes.
Yeah.
It's funny, we've talked all this time about Steve Jobs, and we haven't even mentioned his famous Think Different campaign.
Right.
But it's so relevant,
It really captures his whole philosophy.
Jobs, he was a rebel. He wasn't afraid to, challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
To think differently. And that's what led to his success.
It absolutely did.
He embraced risk, wasn't afraid to fail, pushed boundaries. That's, I think, a really powerful lesson for all of us, no matter what we do.
I agree. Entrepreneur, artist, student, anyone who wants to make a difference. Jobs' story, it reminds us that it's okay to be different, to, challenge conventions, to always strive for excellence.
It strikes me that even with all the success, the innovation, the wealth, the fame, Jobs was still human. He faced challenges, made mistakes, and, well, he wasn't invincible. I think that's important to remember.
It is. Even the most iconic figures, they have their vulnerabilities.
Success isn't about being perfect. It's about resilience, learning from your mistakes, and never giving up.
Well said.
So after this deep dive, what's the big takeaway? What do we walk away with?
I think it comes down to this. Jobs' story is both inspiring and cautionary. Inspiring because it shows us what's possible, that we all have the potential for greatness. But it's also cautionary because it reminds us that success often comes with a price. And it's up to each of us to decide what we're willing to sacrifice, what values we prioritize, and ultimately what kind of legacy we want to leave behind.
That's a powerful thought. It really resonates with me. Because Jobs' story, it's messy. It's not black and white. It's full of contradictions. And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe it's not about finding all the answers, but about wrestling with the questions, challenging our assumptions, and figuring out what really matters to us.
Exactly. Who knows? Maybe by doing that, by embracing that think different mentality, by pushing ourselves, we can all tap into a little bit of that Steve Jobs magic and make our own mark on the world.
Something to think about, for sure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep thinking differently.